So if you can't see, if y'all want to show those to everyone in the back, we had, this was not planned, but nothing catches me off guard, so I was prepared for all possibilities as a student minister. But we had a game of Dave and Jeremy trivia, and we had these heads for them to lift up for who they thought it was. So I love that our students are here. I love that our families are here. I love our church, and that we get to sit in this moment together. I'm going to pray over our time today, and then we're going to jump into God's word and see what he has for us. So go ahead and join me as we pray. God, we come to you today, and we are thankful for what you've already done in the lives of our students over this weekend, painting you as the big God that you are, as good as we can. And God, we're thankful for what you've already done this morning as we've sung about who you are and what you're doing. And we ask, as we open your word and see what you say about yourself, God, that we just continue seeing that you are just that. You are God, so much bigger and better and greater than anything we can imagine. And all the glory goes to you. God, I ask you, open our eyes and open our hearts and ears to hear and see you as you are, and that we are in awe of all that you do. God, be with us this morning. Help us see your word is true. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Like I said, it is super exciting to be here with you this morning, and it's been an exciting weekend already, and I'm glad that you get to be a part of it. Some of y'all thought y'all were done with high school. Well, you're not. You're stuck now. That you're part of high school weekend, and so you can graduate later or whatever. But man, we've had an awesome weekend with our high schoolers as we've dived into the topic of the glory of God, and as we were planning this event out and what it might look like and what we might want to talk about and what we might want to see God do, we had the idea of what is something as they walk into the next stages of their lives, as they walk onto college campuses, as they begin to evaluate relationships and figure out who they want to marry and spend the rest of their life with, as they start jobs and start businesses and start families. As they walk into all of these moments, what is something that we can give them that paints God as who he is, that he is present for all of those moments? And I love history. I'm not sure if you do. If you look back in history in the 16th century, there was a church split, basically. The Roman Catholic Church had begun to practice and believe unbiblical things, and they had begun to do what's called selling indulgences, which basically, if you paid the Roman Catholic Church enough money, they could pray for you, and that their prayers, because they were so holy, carried enough favor for you that they had weight with the big guy, and you can now buy your way into heaven or get a better spot or whatever that looked like. And there's groups of people that began to see the inconsistency and began to see what God's word said, specifically because at that time God's word was not available for everyone to read for themselves. As they began to split away from the Roman Catholic Church and what we now call the Protestant Reformation, and we would consider ourselves Protestant because we're not considering ourselves Catholic, they wanted to help the church see God rightly. And so they had begun to organize theology and theological doctrinal statements to help make sure that people could see God rightly. And one of the things that came out of this time is what we call the five solas, and it's how they understood God and understood salvation. And that's some of what we talked about this week. I want to go over them for you, that it would start off as sola scriptura. Sola is the Latin word for praise, glory, honor, and that's where we are. Our sola is the word alone. Sorry, and so doxa, which I'll get into in just a minute, is the word glory and honor and praise. But sola is the word alone. It's where we get our word solo. And so these statements say that, hey, these things alone are true and are sufficient in what they are. And so the first one is sola scriptura, that scripture alone is the basis of everything that we believe, is the basis of our faith. It is sufficient, it is authoritative, and then that would move to sola gratia, the grace alone, that all this is through God's grace, his unmerited favor to us. Sola fide, faith alone, that it is through faith alone that we are saved, and that faith is not our own faith. It is actually a gift to us. It is God's grace to us. There's sola Christo, Christ alone, that all of this is done through the work of Christ on the cross, and that everything that we have is based on his work. The salvation that we have is based off of his blood shed on the cross, and that all of this is sola Dei Gloria, to the glory of God alone. And so this week we wanted to start with the big picture, the big idea, and ask the question, what is the glory of God? We wanted to paint God as big as who he is and say, hey, if all of this is for the glory of God, what does that look like and what does that mean for us? And like I said earlier, the word glory is the word doxa, and that's where we get doxology from, and that it is honor. It is praise. It is the worthiness, the value of something. And as we talk about the glory of God, that we would say God is due the honor. God is due the praise. God is the most valuable. God is the most worthy. A couple of definitions are quotes I pulled from people much smarter than I am, that are better with words than I am. One author and pastor, Rick Warren, said, "What is the glory of God? It is who God is. It is the essence of his nature, the weight of his importance, the radiance of his splendor, the demonstration of his power. It is the atmosphere of his presence." Pastor David actually talked a couple weeks ago and quoted D.A. Carson and said, "The glory of God is his goodness on display." The glory of God is his goodness on display. That everywhere we look, as we see what God's doing, as we see his goodness, that is his glory on display. That is his honor on display. That is his worthiness on display. And so my goal for this weekend and in our time together is very straightforward. I want you to see God as he is, as what he says about himself, as a God that is so much bigger. He's so much more powerful, so wise, so great than anything that we can even imagine. And when we see that all over the place, we see that in creation. We talked about this a little bit over the weekend, that as you look out into the galaxy, you know, the Psalm says that the heavens declare the handiwork of the Lord. It declares the glory of the Lord. That as we look out and we see space, that is the glory of God on display. In the 1990s, the Hubble telescope was developed. And for the first time, we were able to see further than we ever have before and see these images of space light years away. And just recently, the James Webb telescope was invented, and it's 6 times bigger than the Hubble and 100 times more powerful. And we have seen further than we've ever seen before. And you know what we found out there? That God is still that big. We've seen 16.3 billion light years away. And so if you don't understand the concept of a light year, the fastest anything that we know can travel is light. And so if we could travel at the speed of light, it would still take us 16.3 billion years to get as far as we can see in this telescope. And here's the crazy big thing about God, is that's not just something God created, that's a place that he's present at just as he's present here. That's how big he is. I was having a conversation with one of our small group leaders. They were talking about their girls in their small group, and they were talking about the idea about how big God is in the big things, but he's also big in the small things. That as big and complex as God creating galaxies and God creating solar systems, he creates the smallest thing like a cell that would sustain life and do all the things that it does. This intricate system that is the building block of everything we do, and that God is intricately and intimately involved in it. We see it all over the place, the glory of God. We see it a lot in sports. I know the South, and especially our area, is a very big sports culture, especially college football. I'm sure we have some Georgia fans in the room. Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe some Alabama fans in the room. Yeah, sure. No Roll Tide? Okay, that's fine. I know we have some Auburn fans in the room. Yeah. Clemson fans? Someone? One person? It's okay. It's okay. Well, and right, we love our sports teams, right? And here's the thing. I'm not sure if you caught it. We call it our team, right? Listen, at the big game, when everything's on the line, they're not asking you to put on a jersey and suit up and go play in the big game. You are not on the team. Like, I need to have a come to Jesus with you for a moment and make sure that you realize that. But there is something inside of us that was created inside of us, and we want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves, and we get excited when our team is doing great, and when our team wins the championships, we feel like we did something great, even though none of us are suiting up on a Saturday or a Sunday, right? What is that? What is in us that there's something inside of us that wants to give glory to things? I think about glory all the time when you think about the things that you love. One of my favorite places to go is the beach. Do I have any beach lovers in here? Okay, some of y'all. Everyone else is like, no, I just hate the sand. Listen, you just don't know the beach like I do. No, some of you guys are like, oh no, I love the mountains and I love the trees. But listen, for me, I absolutely love the beach. I love the first day on the beach and the sand is just too hot, so you're kind of like, I love this, it hurts, but I love it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love that part. I love the smell of the ocean as you start getting closer. Like, the smell begins to change. I love the wind, blowing across my skin, the ocean breeze, the sound of the waves. I love people listening to their music too loud, right? Like, I have a vivid memory of me as a young student, probably early, late elementary school, sitting on the beach, enjoying all that is good at the beach, and Gwen Stefani's Holler Back Girl playing loudly beside us. And ever since that moment, I've never had a problem misspelling the word banana, right? I know it. It is ingrained in me from that moment. The first service, I actually said Avril Lavigne's Holler Back Girl. I had to look it up. I actually didn't know who sung the song. I was very sheltered growing up. My parents are in the room. Until I was a high school student, I had a mixed CD of Jars of Clay and Mercy Me, and that was the only music that I was allowed to listen to. So I had no clue who sung that song. I just knew that I now knew how to spell the word banana, right? Like that was a reality in my life. And so, so I love the beach. And so, like, I remember these memories. Like, I love eating ice cream on the beach, right? Like, ice cream, there's something about it that tastes better on the beach. And as I tell you about how good the beach is, and how great the beach is, and how beautiful the beach is, some of you guys were like, I actually didn't like the beach, but now that he's talking about it, I think he's convinced me. I think I am actually a beach person. Let's all go to the beach right now. As I began to tell you of the glory of the beach, you begin to see something big and something beautiful. You begin to see something great. I remember a few years ago, probably 5 or 6 years ago now, we took a family vacation to the beach with my wife's family, and it was my young nephew, Mackie's, first time to the beach. Never been before. And we get there, and we're so excited, and we're like, buddy, the beach is awesome, right? Like the waves, the water moves at the beach. I know it's crazy, like it's coming and it's going. You can do stuff with it. You can build stuff in the sand, like Holler Back Girl's playing, right? Like the beach is awesome. You're gonna love it. And we get there, and we get ready to go, and he's like, I just wanna go to the pool. Right? All of our parents have lived in this moment before. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And we're telling him, like, no, buddy, you're going to love the beach. You're going to love this. And he's just like, I want to go to the pool. And he begins to cry and get upset because he just wants to go to the beach. And I remember, as I think back on that moment, if he could just know what I know, if he could just have experienced the things that I have experienced, he would know how great the beach is. But in this moment, he made the decision to settle for the pool. Here's the thing that we need to know about ourselves. We are far more like my nephew than we would like to admit. So often, We are in danger of settling for the lesser things when the glory of God and what he is doing is on display for us to celebrate and enjoy. Author Pastor C.S. Lewis wrote in his book, Mere Christianity, he said, "It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered to us. Like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in the slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased." So many of us are in danger on missing out on all that God has for us, on the glory of God that is available for us to walk in and sit in and enjoy, because we're settling for what's right in front of us. We're settling for the lesser joys, the lesser pleasures. The Apostle Paul is going to say it like this in Romans chapter 1. I want you to listen to his words. Romans chapter 1, verse 21. He says, "For although they knew God, they did not," what's that word? Honor him. What did we say the word glory meant? Honor, praise, value, worth. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God. They did not give him the praise as God. They did not give him the glory he was due as God, or give thanks to him. They became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore, God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie. Don't miss this. Because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie. What truth? That the glory is his. That the Creator is better than the things that were created. That he is all good. That he is always right. That he knows more, is more powerful than anything we could be. They traded the truth of God for a lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the Creator who is blessed forever. So many times, the beach is available to us, and we just want to go swimming in the pool. And God has so much more available to us, and he has invited us in to walk into the things that he's doing and the moments that he has for us, to see how big he is, to see how powerful he is, to see how great he is, and we choose to swim in the pool instead. And here's the thing, we've already established this. We are glory givers. We are always giving glory. It just depends on what we're giving glory to. We are always giving glory. It'll either be to something external, something internal, or something eternal. But make no mistake, we are going to give glory to something. It'll be something outside of ourselves, external, something inside of ourselves, something internal, or something bigger, something that is eternal, God. But we will give glory to something. We're created to give glory. So the question is, what do we give glory to? External glory, we talked a little bit about it. We see creation and we see beautiful mountain landscapes. We last year took a trip to Colorado and went to the Rocky Mountains, and I have never seen anything that big before. I'm not sure if you've had the chance to see mountains that big, and you're just in there and your response is awe. Like how could there be something this big? But the Rocky Mountains were never meant to exist for the glory of the Rocky Mountains. They were meant to exist that as you are in awe of the Rocky Mountains, you would look up and be like, how big is a God that would carve this with his hand? That he would make this in such a way. As we look into space, same thing, that we would see something so big, so majestic. And we say, how big is he that he would make that? We talked about sports. Man, just recently we had the Super Bowl, and Kansas City Chiefs had the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. That's a big thing. That's not a small thing. That is a big thing. And you watch a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's the MVP of the game, who at this point in his career has higher statistics than some of the people we would say are the greats of his time, and we're watching something great unfolding in us, but the talent of Patrick Mahomes was never meant just for the talent of Patrick Mahomes. It was meant to give glory that someone created him in such a way that he could do the things that he does. A championship game of football was never meant for the glory of football. That God would create these people and these ideas and this organization, and that people would play this epic battle and this epic story out in front of us, so that as we witness it and see something bigger than ourselves, we would see a God that is bigger than all of that. We see it in art. We see it in music. I know everyone loves music, as our band sits here is so talented and leads us in worship every week, and I'm sure you have your favorite musicians, right? Maybe it's Gwen Stefani. I don't know. But here's the thing. None of them would be able to do anything they could do if God hadn't created sound for them, right? No musician was just sitting there. It's like, hey, I'm going to invent sound and people are going to enjoy listening to me. No, they are dependent on a God that created the tools and the resources and the infrastructure and the idea of everything that they've done just for them to do what they do. So even as you sit and you listen to your favorite music, that you would not think this artist is so talented, this band is so great, but how good is God that he would create something like music just for me to enjoy, and that he would get the glory in that moment. Maybe it's something internal. Like I said, we are glory thieves. As we walk around and we see great things happening, and God allows us to be a part of great things happening, we try to take the glory for ourselves. Look at my idea. Look at my success. Well, look at my company I built. Look at my family I raised. Look at this. Look at that. Look at the things that I did. And we try to take the glory for it all. And I'm not saying you shouldn't try to have a great job and start a great business and lead a great family. Those things are great, but it was never meant that it would end up landing on you. That as you walk in those moments, that the glory would go up, and we'd be like, how good is God that he's protected my family and loved us in such a way that we would have this. How good is God that he would bless the idea that he probably gave me, and the brain that he gave me, and the resources that he gave me, and the company he put me in, and all the things that only someone like God could orchestrate to make happen so you could be successful. That the glory would always go back to him. So there's external, something outside of us. That glory is meant for him. Internal, is it meant for us? No, our glory is meant to be eternal, to go to something bigger than ourselves, outside of ourselves. And here's where I think, especially South and American Christianity has a danger that they face. There's a trap that they could fall in, because we get so focused on all the things that God does for us. And don't get this wrong, God does so much for us. God is so good of a God and so big of a God that he has done so much. Scripture, Ephesians, tells us that before the foundation of the world, he has adopted his children into his family. That is not a small thing. That is a big thing. We are sons and daughters of God. It says that he has made us in his image. That we are imago Dei, in the image of God. Did you know that no other created being ever has been made in the image of God? There is no other created being that God has made that was made like us, to be in relationship with him like us. That is not a small thing. That is God making much of us. It says he has blessed us with every spiritual blessing. It says he has provided everything that we need. We get to enjoy his creation around us. Those are not small things. Those moments are God saying, I have made you in my image. There is value, there is glory in you, but it was never meant to land on us. As we enjoy these things, that glory was meant to go up and be given to God. God actually talks about this in the Old Testament. What is he doing? I want to hear what God says about his glory. And he's talking to the nation of Israel. He's like, hey, here is what I am about. Here is what I'm doing. Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 22. If you have your Bibles, I want you to turn there. I want you to read this for yourself. Don't miss this. He says, therefore say to the house of Israel, thus says the Lord, it is not for whose sake? It's not for your sake. It's not for me. It's not for Israel. It's not for America. It's not for Revolution Church's sake that I am doing the things that I am doing, that I am about to act, but for the sake of my holy name. The Hebrew culture, the name symbolized character. So God's saying, for the sake of my holy character, for the sake of who I am, for the sake of my being, for the sake of my glory. You want to know what I'm about? I'm about getting my glory. This is for the sake of my holy name, which you have profaned among the nations to which you came. And I will vindicate the holiness of my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, and which you have profaned among them. And the nations will know that I am Lord, declares the Lord God. This is how he's going to do this. Don't miss this either. How is he going to make his name glorious? How is he making the nations know that he is holy? When through you, I vindicate my holiness before their eyes. The system that God has created for him to be seen as big, for him to be seen as glorious, for him to be seen as mighty, for him to be seen as worthy, is that you would give him the glory. And that all the people around you that don't know him would see that and see that there is a God that is bigger. And see that there is a God that is better. And that there is a God that is worthy. And it says holy. Holy means set apart, perfect. There's no other being that is perfect. Only God. That's why he gets the glory. God is about what is best for the glory about God. God is about what's best for God. And here is the absolutely mind-boggling, amazing thing. What's best for God just happens to be what's best for us as well. That as God goes out and he is about God's business, he blesses his children. As God goes out and God goes about his business, he's saving his people. As God goes out and he's going about his business, he is reconciling all things to himself. And we see a God that is that much bigger and that much better. The psalmist challenges us to enjoy God. He says, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. They said, taste and see. Hey, God is saying, based off of who I am challenging you. Try me. Taste and see that I'm not that good. Taste and see. Experience me. And I dare you to try and say that I am not the best, that I am not worth it, that I am not the biggest. You won't find anything else that is better than me. Taste and see that the Lord is good. The Apostle Paul writes in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, he says, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. So whether you eat or drink, whatever you do, there is a way that we can operate, that no matter what we are doing, what moment we are walking into, that we can do it for the glory of God. So here, I want you to lean in with me and envision this with me for a moment. As you sit in your favorite local Mexican restaurant and you overfill your chip with hot, cheesy queso, and you put that in your mouth, that is a holy moment that God has created for you to walk in, and he deserves all the glory for queso. Amen? Right? That as you are sitting in that moment and someone walks by with a sizzling plate of fajitas and you're like, I should have ordered that. That looks really good. That he would get the glory in that moment. That as you walk out of this room, in everything you do, there's a way that you can glorify God, that you are meant to glorify God. That as you walk out of this room and get to your car and your car starts, you'd be like, thank God that my car started. That would have been a really bad day, that God would get the glory. As you go home and you rest and spend time with your family and you just sit in the presence of your family, that is a holy moment that God has allowed you to step in and that he would get the glory in it. I'm lucky enough and blessed enough to be walking in that right now. We have a 10-month-old Whitaker, and he is an absolute blast. He's learning words. He said dad first. I feel like that's important to say. He's just now starting to say mama. He doesn't really have a lot of words. He mostly just screams, right? And so he's like, ah. And so we're like, okay, we can get on board this. So we put on some Frozen 2. We're like, we're going to teach you something. We're like, ah. And he's like, ah, right? And we're like, that's close enough. I'll take it. And here's what I'm saying. That as we sit and listen to him scream at Frozen 2, that is a holy moment that God has invited us to walk into, and he deserves the glory in it. That as you go to bed at night and you lay your head on a pillow, that we say, thank God that we are not sleeping on rocks anymore. I have a padded mattress and a feather pillow. Maybe it's even memory foam. Maybe God has extremely blessed you and you've upgraded, right? That God would get the glory in all that we do. Here's the thing about the glory of God. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. We glorify God when we acknowledge his influence on everything we see and do. Whether we eat, whether we drink, whether it's a chip full of queso or you're sitting and watching Frozen 2 with your family, screaming at the TV, that it is a holy moment that God has blessed you and allowed you to walk into, and he deserves the glory. You didn't do that. You don't have the power to manufacture that. You're not smart enough to make that happen. You are limited, and God is just so good. And he deserves all the glory and wants it, that he would create these moments for us to walk in every day, and that we would give him the glory in it. The Apostle Paul writes in 2 Corinthians chapter 3, he says, beholding the glory of the Lord. As we see the glory of God, we are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. So it's not only that God has made us in his image, but as we walk around and we see his influence on everything that we do and we see his glory all around us, that a transformation is beginning to take place. And God not only made us in his image, but he is transforming us to be more like him. You know who deserves the glory in that? You didn't do it. It says that God is transforming you, that he is that good. It uses the word behold, which means to look and see, and it's just what we talked about, that everywhere you look and see, there is a holy moment that God has prepared for you. The fact that we're sitting in this room together, celebrating the glory of God, is a holy moment that he has allowed us to walk into. I'm not saying that there's not difficulty in life. I'm not saying that there's not frustrations. I'm not saying that we should walk around faking this. But if we have the posture to look and see, we can't help but see the glory of God all around us and how big he is and how great he is. But here's the thing. Some of us are satisfied with swimming in the pool. We're satisfied with dwelling in the glory of the pool, in lesser things, in a posture that does not give God the glory, that gives it to us or to other things. And when we do that, we sin. John Piper, author and pastor, wrote this, and I thought this was so powerful based off of where we're at. He says, what is sin? It is the glory of God not honored, the holiness of God not revered, the greatness of God not admired, the power of God not praised, the truth of God not sought, the wisdom of God not esteemed, the beauty of God not treasured, the goodness of God not savored, the faithfulness of God not trusted, the commandments of God not obeyed, the justice of God not respected, the wrath of God not feared, the grace of God not cherished, the presence of God not prized, and the person of God not loved. He said, what is sin? It's when we don't give God the glory. But he also said this. He says, you want to know when God gets the most glory? God is most glorified when we are most satisfied in him. That as we walk into the holy moments that he has prepared for us, and we're sitting and enjoying time with our family, and we're enjoying queso, and even as we are enjoying Gwen Stefani at the beach, that our enjoyment of that and our acknowledgement of God as the creator and the author of these moments gives him the most glory. And he says, you want to know what's going to change the people around you's life? Going back to our Ezekiel passage, he said, you want to know how your neighbors are going to see that God's good? When you live like that. When you can't help but every moment you walk into say, look how good that God is, that he would do this for me even in the midst of difficulty. Even in the midst of hardship and trial. I mean, maybe you're walking into work tomorrow morning and you're walking into a difficult moment. And you can still walk into that moment and say, I remember a time where I prayed to walk into a job like this. And I can thank God for his provision. I can thank God for his protection of my family. I can say he deserves the glory, even in the midst of difficulty and hardship. But that doesn't happen swimming in the pool. No one knows how great the beach is when we just swim in the pool. My young nephew, Mackie, eventually got into the ocean. After much, I think we spent the whole first day at the pool, if I'm being honest, which all of you are like, yeah, that sounds about right. But we got to the beach and we finally get there. And I just remember Mackie, the waves are crushing in and he's just jumping into the wave. And he's 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 jumping into the wave. And he just did that for hours. And eventually a storm starts rolling in, and which is very common on any beach vacation that I'm a part of. If you know me, you know that that's true. A storm starts rolling in, wind starts picking up, temperature starts dropping, and we start packing up, and here's Mackie jumping into the wave. Jumping, we're like, buddy, hey, it's time to go. Like, we got to go. Storm's coming, and Mackie walks out, dripping wet, shaking, blue lips, and he says, I don't want to leave this place. That is the glory of God on display. Man, if you're not someone who knows the glory of God, if you're not someone who walks with Jesus, you've never tasted and seen that he's good, I want to plead with you for a moment. I wish that you could know what I know. And I wish you could experience what I have experienced. And while you're swimming in the pool, the ocean is available. I want you to get to the place that says, I don't want to leave this place. It's just too good. As we find satisfaction in the holy moments that God has created for us. These I don't want to leave this place moment. That God is most glorified. That he is at his most big. He is flexing all of his power, his infinite wisdom, as we enjoy the good things he's provided for us. That is how good he is. And I pray that that's true for you. I pray that you get to walk in the I don't want to leave this place moments. And you acknowledge the author of that moment. That God created that just for you, but not for your glory. for His. Pray with me.